Okay, so we have an interesting case. Obviously, Mensah, the Duke quarterback, really good player, ACC champion player, announced he was returning to Duke, right? There was a belief that he could go to the draft. Honestly, at this point, might, fuck around and be quarterback 2 in this draft if he were to go, given that I'm not a big believer in Ty Simpson. Neither here nor there. So he transferred to Duke, signed a 2-year deal, did not declare, announced he was staying, and then Miami went on a string where they struck out on a bunch of quarterbacks, and Miami kind of known tamperers, and then it kind of came out that, look, like, now all of a sudden, Mensah might hit the portal, and then Mensah hits the portal, and then yesterday we had Duke filing to sue, which they told us they would exercise every option. So Duke filed for a TRO to stop Mensah, the star quarterback, from hitting the portal, temporary restraining order. He is in the portal now, but some things have changed. Now, this is Ross Dellinger, has been doing a good job covering this Duke versus Mensah thing. Again, we have another case. The first one was Damon Williams versus Washington. When Damon tried to leave, it was kind of floated to him all the legal hoops he would have to jump through, and then from there, it was like, yeah, maybe I'll just return back to Washington. This feels like the real battle. Upon request for comment, Duke University Athletics released to Yahoo Sports this statement regarding Darian Mensah. Mr. Mensah has an existing contract with Duke, which the university intends to honor, and we expect he will do the same. Duke statement continued. The court-ordered temporary restraining order issued yesterday ensures he does not violate his contract. The university is committed to supporting all of our student athletes while expecting each of them to abide by their contractual obligations. Duke is expected to comply with NCAA rules by entering Mensah into the portal soon. However, a judge granted Duke a temporary restraining order prohibiting him from violating his agreement with the school, which includes enrolling at another university and playing football. It is interesting that the "and playing football" there is at the bottom. I think a lot of Miami fans are confused and think, hey, like, it's not pay for play, so there can't be anything in the contract in regards to playing football. Duke feels like they worked around it, so they feel really good, which is why the signaling is they're going to take this to the absolute limit. Duke officials have not entered formal negotiations with Mensah or his representative over his contract. The school stands by the 2-year deal struck with the quarterback last year that pays him roughly $4 million annually. That's real. And then Nathan with a really good point. When will Miami comply with NCAA rules and stop tampering by contacting players that are not in the portal? So this is entering like a real like battle territory, right? You got this from Pete Thamel. He got the some of the court documents. And again, we have a case of the star player for the ACC champion, probably the best player, definitely the best quarterback in the ACC all of next year, just won a conference title. And the team that finished second, who Miami didn't have to split their earnings from the playoffs with the rest of the conference, they got every last cent. And Miami, also known as a tampering university, earning all that money, not having to split it, is the ultimate incentive to cheat. And so for me, tampering this egregiously is, well, man, I want to hear it. Cheating. Does everybody tamper? Yeah, probably. But to this egregious, feels crazy. And the ACC kind of incentivizes these teams to go do this because they let Miami keep all of their playoff earnings. And their stance is, well, fuck, it's like when Notre Dame's independent, they get to keep all the earnings. I want the same deal next year. We're losing Carson Beck. We're losing a lot on defense. We're going to have to score more points. Let's go pay $10 million to Mensah. This from Pete Thamel. Here is the wording of Duke's TRO ruling. Essentially, Mensah cannot enroll at another school, play football at another school, or license his NIL to another school. And again, this isn't the contract. This is the wording of the Duke temporary restraining order, meaning that they've won at least this individual battle in the eyes of the government, which honestly is it's cementing pay for play. More from Pete Thamel. This ruling will remain until the preliminary injunction hearing on February 2nd, 2026. Again, It's about, I don't, what's today's date? Today is the 21st. That is a long while. And during that time, he cannot enroll in classes. So while maybe at the end of it, they will rule that he can enroll at a different university, there's like no window. Like, you have to be enrolled in classes by now. I mean, I know LSU was in a rush to get Seton and Princewell kind of locked in because they had classes that were going to start, and it gets harder the further you kind of go along with things. So he cannot enter the portal. Well, he's in the portal right now, but can't enroll at a different university. So he can be recruited by other schools, but he can't go anywhere until at least February 2nd. Now, obviously, it's football, and so like they'll work with him, I'm sure. But this feels like a very, very tightening window that it might be less of a headache just to return back to Duke. Top tier Miami. Kind of sad that Duke refused to move up the hearing to a closer date, because that absolutely hurts them in all this. Oh, here we go. Perfect. I guess I'll stick out that small. Miami's last day of registration and to add a course is Wednesday, January 21st. That is today. The last day, deadline to apply for inactive status, January 28th. Deadline to apply for non-UM programs. Last day to make a change in credit-only designation. Like, January 28th. Like, he might be absolutely stuck. This is what happens when you have lazy recruiting, lack of talent evaluation on staff. Miami hit lightning in a bottle with Cam Ward, but has done a poor job evaluating quarterbacks, and the snub of Fernando Mendoza, who they had a head start on, by the way. They knew he was going to enter the portal well before he entered the portal, and he was, same high school as Mario Cristobal. So, again, can go in the portal, but can't leave the portal. Here's this. This is Barry Jackson, and he covers it. Sounds like he covers Miami. Duke is hoping to make things so miserable. Here we go. We'll just go all the way. Could it be that Duke retains his NIL while he plays for Miami? How could Miami legally compensate him without NIL and without making him an employee? All roads lead to negotiation. Full disclosure, Duke 77. That's funny. In theory, Darian Mensah could join Miami as a student and play football, but he can't, so this must have been old. It was yesterday. But not sign an NIL deal with Miami, and Duke could control his NIL, but that won't happen. Duke wants to keep him, and he wants to join Miami in a better NIL deal. NIL is functioning as employment. From what I understand, Duke doesn't want to keep Mensah. They just want money for him breaching his contract. Genuine question, how would it benefit from controlling his NIL but still having him play for Miami? I think Duke wants to keep Mensah and is using NIL, which isn't supposed to be about recruitment and retention, to do so. A scenario where he plays for Miami but Duke controls his NIL seems unworkable, in my opinion. The situation could end up with Mensah staying at Duke but being paid more money. We'll go back one more. Duke is hoping to make things so difficult and miserable for him that he will change his mind and stay, while Washington's QB in a similar spot reverse course and remain in Seattle because it would have been way too big of a headache to Damon Williams. Every athlete is different in terms of how they respond to threats from its current school. Well, it's not just threats at this point. It's so actionable. By the way, I was assured a bit ago that Mensah at this time has no desire to remain at Duke, and this is different from Washington's situation where Damon Williams ultimately was fine with staying. Mensah has been unwavering in wanting to join UM, per sources. Unwavering, but committed to come back. That's a mess. I'm not going to read all this. I read it earlier, but I do think that David McKenzie did a really good job with kind of the breakdown. This second paragraph I thought was really fascinating. So obviously, like, this is I think he's a lawyer. Like, Dave McKenzie does the law thing, and I thought to me the TRO word was bond, and he had this to say about the reservations about Duke's temporary restraining order. Frankly, if this contract did not contain section what is that 8-2 in which Mensah specifically acknowledges that any breach of student-athlete hereunder shall cause Duke irreparable harm, which there is no adequate remedy at law. I would give the TRO essentially zero chance. More fundamentally, I'm skeptical that the egg cannot be unscrambled. If Duke loses the TRO but prevails in the preliminary injunction hearing in 10 days or so, a court can still enjoin Mensah from playing for Miami. Enjoin. The 2026 season does not start till August. There's time for a proper hearing with full briefing and adversarial presentation. The TRO standard exists for genuine emergencies. I'm not convinced this qualified unless I'm missing something, but it did qualify. So right now we've got like a mess with Mensah, and I wanted to give some background because I want to listen to these two talk about it. That's what we're going to do. We're going to make it a little bigger because we do have an absolute mess on our hands. You see this? It's like an art class. I should have had two windows open, but you guys will bear with me, right? This is, this is Andy and Ari. We'll go like this. Go bigger. And I'm curious kind of their stance because I have formulated my opinion. Wanted to give background before I play this. I actually also haven't seen this yet, but my opinion is that ACC needs to step in, and I'll kind of give my thoughts during this. So here we have this.
Message boards. This one was pretty much all over the place. We'll use the thread from Kane Sport because the Miami site definitely will have keen interest in this. So 98 Storm Surge puts this up with the headline, Duke sues quarterback Darian Mensah. Why is Duke suing Darian Mensah? Because on Friday, Mensah told Manny Diaz and company that he would like to enter the transfer portal. And the presumption is he will head to Miami if he does wind up transferring. So on Monday night, Duke sued Darian Mensah in Durham County Court in North Carolina. And basically they were asking a judge for a temporary restraining order that would keep Mensah from transferring, that would keep Duke from having to enter Mensah in the transfer portal. Now, what the judge ruled was that Duke can't stop from entering him in the transfer portal, that he didn't grant that part of the restraining order, but he did grant another part of it, which says that Darian Mensah cannot enroll in another school or join another college football team until after the result of a hearing on an injunction. And so the hearing
February 2nd is such an important date for college athletics.
For that injunction is scheduled for February 2nd. They are trying to get it moved up. Darian Mensah's lawyer, Darren Heitner, is trying to get that moved up so that they can do it faster. And they're going to argue this out. Really interesting case because in the lawsuit, in the petition for,
if these two cared about college athletics, they would be strongly against him being able to go to Miami, and not because of Miami's dominance, but because he signed a 2-year deal. And at some point, these universities and these kids both need kind of some form of security, right? Like if, for example, like if this kid ended up being really, really bad at Duke year 1 and they didn't want to pay him $4 million for year 2, I would be up in arms if they were like, yeah, we're just going to cut you and not pay you. It's like, no, you signed a 2-year deal. You're going to pay that. And on the other side of it, if the kid, you signed the 2-year deal, like, you gotta, if you're not going to the league, you don't get to go play for another college, especially not in our conference.
For the injunction, Duke included the contract. Now, the dollar figures aren't in there. It's reportedly worth $4 million a year, but it's a 2-year deal that he agreed to after he transferred from Tulane. So he served out 1 year of it. Now he's on the 2nd year. And basically, it's not like a coach's contract, Ari. So you know how the coach's contracts work, where we look at them and we're like, okay, if this guy gets fired, they owe him $38 million. If he decides to go to another school, he has to pay them $5 million. Mm-hmm. Those don't exist on most of these player contracts. So that's where people get confused. Like, what's the buyout? According to Duke, in its contract, there's no buyout because him breaching the contract would cause irreparable harm. I'm using the quote from the contract. The phrase they use is irreparable harm. Like, there is no solution, according to them, based on contract. So now we all know there's always a dollar figure, but they're not at that point yet.
It's the point in time, too. I think that is easier to prove now, right?
Right. As long as Duke doesn't sign another transfer quarterback right now. Like if they signed a transfer quarterback between now and the hearing, something tells me that Mensah's people would feel like they could use that.
Just completely made that up. Just completely made that up entirely.
Their advantage.
Yeah. Well, I think I saw somewhere that aren't they hosting San Jose State's quarterback transfer? I think I saw that.
Yeah, I believe they're. I mean, they have to look at those guys right now.
Yeah. Pete Nakos just tweeted out an hour ago. Duke has emerged in the school to watch for San Jose State transfer Walker Eggett.
Okay, I wasn't sure if Pete had actually sent that out yet.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Yeah, a little Pete behind the curtain. And then, sorry if you were for a second, you're like, oh, God, we're going to have to edit that out. No, I saw it on Twitter.
Yeah.
So, and I wonder if that
one of those where when I talk to Pete about some stuff that's maybe coming out and I don't know exactly when it's coming out, I got to be a little careful, but that's out. So I think that's something that Darian Mensah's people will probably try to use to their advantage by saying, well, it's not irreparable harm because you get this guy. What Duke would argue is that's not the same thing.
Yeah, well,
Darian Mensah is a top 10 quarterback in college football, is what they would argue.
I wonder too.
Probably top 5 for net going into next year, dude.
Depending on how long it's drawn out, if Duke were not able to function the way it wants to, from a talent acquisition standpoint, they could be in a worse place if they lose whatever hearings, injunctions, or whatever the word is, by not being able to replace him. And then they might go into a situation where they don't have a quarterback at all. So I wonder, like, how far can you actually go with this legal action? Because if you can't guarantee,
you have to keep moving as if you're going to play without Darian Mensah. And then
right
now, this is somewhat similar to the Damon Williams Jr. thing. And I think that's so. Let's answer the common questions that we're getting from fans, because I think that's the easiest thing to do. Because this is one of those things where in the real world, when it meets college football fantasy land, people get confused, and understandably so, because it's different. So why could he just leave when he has a contract? Like in the NFL, you can't just leave. Well, there's no standard contract. The contracts aren't collectively bargained. So there are contracts for these players where their agents or their attorneys might say,
did he not read it? It does sound like in the one excerpt that's out there that part of the conditions of the contract was enrollment at Duke. And he kind of just glossed over that. I think that's really, really important kind of when we learn more and more about these contracts. Like, it cannot be technically pay for play, but if they can base it on enrollment or not enrolling at another school, like that kind of protects you would think.
You know what? That feels kind of vulnerable. You might be able to get out. The Damon Williams case was similar to this in that Damon Williams decided shortly into the portal period, hey, I do want to enter the portal.
Now, again, he's leaving out after signing a deal. Damon Williams signed a deal for the next season and then decided 2 weeks after that he was hitting the portal.
He had already signed a deal with Washington, I believe 4 days before he decided to enter the portal.
4 days, 2 weeks, my bad. I just my time calendar's all out of whack.
And Washington never ended up suing him. But Washington made very clear that it would try to enforce the contract if he left. I've not seen that contract. There was no legal action, so they didn't make an exhibit in the lawsuit. I've talked to people who have seen it. And the reason Damon Williams is still at Washington is Washington used a contract written by the Big Ten's attorneys that the Big Ten schools all use. That is maybe a stronger contract than the one Darian Mensah signed with Duke. We'll find out. But basically,
well, he probably has a good point in terms of like the Big Ten contract, like being really strong and firmly written. I've heard that from a lot of people, which is why no Big Ten school was even in on Williams when he hit the portal, because they knew, like, yeah, we can't really touch this across the conference. I would be shocked if the Duke contract isn't extremely, extremely well written and very harsh, considering what people go to Duke for med school. Duke law is crazy. So I would be shocked if this was a contract not written with the same intensity, or at least similar intensity to the Big Ten. Because again, we're talking about, billion-dollar universities.
When Damon Williams sat down with his people, and by the way, the attorney Darren Heiner I mentioned, who was representing Darian Mensah, was hired by Damon Williams during all that stuff. But when Damon Williams sat down with all his people, they came to the conclusion that the juice was not worth the squeeze.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't think they were going to make out on the good end of that thing if he left Washington. And Washington was going to, Washington's deal, as far as I know, did not specify a dollar amount either. But essentially, Washington's like, we're going to try to get the amount of the deal. So Washington was scheduled to pay him $4 million. They were going to try to get $4 million.
Yeah.
Would have made a $4 million buyout would have made him incredibly expensive. And again, probably not worth the squeeze there.
Yeah. It is kind of fascinating.
Andy's mic sounds so much better than Ari's. And it's kind of bizarre because like On3's huge. I mean, this YouTube channel has 290 subscribers. Ari's mic sounds tinny. When you use USB mics, they can sound tinny. And it's because he's using the USB cord rather than the dynamic cord. So it doesn't give you the same fullness. And Andy has the same mic that I have. And there's no place to even go USB in it. You have to go all the way out. So that's why he sounds so much better. Pro's Pro. Got the one thing at the one ear. Got the sneaky little bet MGM thing in the back. They need to get him a poster, but yeah.
Fascinating on the timing of this. When the legal action goes into the time, like how does it work too? Like if Darian Mensah wins his side of the battle, is he allowed to enroll at a new place at that point? Like, because we're outside of the confines of the
dog. What the fuck? You're supposed to be answering these questions for the viewers. Here's the thing. That's really late to enroll, which is why I think Duke wants it there, and Miami and Mensah's lawyers want to move it up.
Portal window at that point.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the academic calendar for Miami. So the last day to add or drop a course,
28th or 24th,
according to their,
or 21st.
Now, a lot of schools you can push it a little bit past that. But let's say you absolutely drop dead, have to be enrolled by a week from now. They got to get this done, and that's before that hearing is scheduled.
Yeah, because like that's the thing that always kind of confuses me about the portal situation too. It's just like, what about all the people who are entering the portal yesterday and today, the day after the championship game, from those places? Like, I'm assuming they have to find an academic loophole, or the institutions themselves make new rules for
It
those.
could be something in the quarter system, and it's a little bit different, and the calendar is different. But yeah, and the thing is, I guess conceivably you could not enroll and not participate in spring practice and just show up at the beginning of the summer.
That's the Noah Ruggles route. He was just traveling abroad in the spring and then came back to Ohio State. Which, I mean, I guess when you're talking about big dollars, you didn't come here to play school, came here to play football. That could be in play.
Term.
Yeah.
And obviously still play for the next year, but that's not ideal either. That's not what Miami wants.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if
the whole thing is fucking crazy, though. Like, we know this is Miami. Like, this is like the clearest case of tampering. The fact that, like, I think that Duke even listed the timeline in their lawsuit and their TRO. Like, yo, like, someone put the Miami offer on the timeline 3 hours before we heard he was transferring. How? Like, NCAA, come look at this. Like, ACC, come look at this. Like, I know that, like, enforcing things is hard right now, but, like, just because enforcing some things is hard, this feels like such an easy thing to enforce in terms of tampering.
Duke's people feel that, like, their contract is maybe not as strong as Washington's, and they might not win. And Mensah's people come to them and say, what if we paid you this much?
Mm-hmm.
They might be able to come to a dollar figure that they can all agree on. I think that's probably how most of these things end. The DeMond Williams one wasn't, because
I guess this is the fucking On3 issue too. Like, yo, like, the fact that, like, you're not, like, blown away by how shady this is and how clear cut, like, absurd tampering and tampering in a way that is crippling. Because, like, you could have had Mensah a year ago if you believed in the evaluation, and you could have signed him to a 2-year deal. Duke took a chance on him and won the ACC, but it's On3, and it's like what is one thing they're gonna milk to get subscriptions, or like milk to get impressions, or like milk to get money? Oh, it's going to be like this kind of fucked up drama and fucked up tampering. Like that helps a site like On3, who really is like TMZ slop style when it comes to like the portal and intel and behind paywall. So like, but like college football fans should like hate this. Like, this is not good. I think honestly everybody outside of Miami fans are like, yo, this is like very, very fucked up. And I wish that like college football media kind of was more intentional with calling this out.
Washington felt very secure in the strength of its contract. Damon Williams did not feel super secure in challenging that.
Yeah.
Talking to Mensah's people, they seem more secure in challenging the contract.
Yeah. And I understand too why he might want to do that, right? So, especially if the destination is where we think it is. So,
well, and the thing is, like Miami, if it means that much to them, and it's funny because you got Miami athletic director Dan Radakovich saying, "Hey, let's just have this thing be uncapped," because if you pay a buyout,
I do want to do a video on the uncapped thing too, because there are ADs pushing for no cap, and I think they're doing it because some schools are just operating with a no cap thing anyway, which they kind of are, because the cap isn't even real; it's like a soft cap, and we'll get into. I mean, honestly, me and Kyle Lamb did a video about that before.
Like we talk about that, the revenue share cap, the $20.5 million, it's actually going up to $22.5 million for next season. How much the schools can actually pay, and then you have to use NIL on top of that. Well, if you pay a buyout, it comes straight out of your rev share cap. So let's say Darian Mensah's buyout was $4 million. That comes out of Miami's number. Now, again, if they're not going to enforce it, I don't know why Miami would care. You just pay it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't, what does it matter what bucket it comes out of? I'm still not.
It does matter if it's actually enforced. If it's enforced in a way where.
What a fucking idiotic thing, yo. Like, you are not listening. You're not listening. He is saying if the cap is enforced, losing $4 million for a buyout is so steep because then you have to pay 4 out of that buyout and then another 6. All of a sudden, that's $20 million out of your cap if it gets enforced. He's like, what bucket does it come out of? No, that's not what the fuck he's talking about.
You get that amount subtracted for the following year, or you get double that amount subtracted for the following year for violating something like that. That would be different. But we don't yet know
He's
if
not
the college
listening,
sport.
bro. I complimented this show, and I think they do a pretty decent job. But oh my god, he's like not engaged at all in what Andy is saying.
Sports Commission, which is the group that the conference has created to deal with this stuff, we don't yet know if they're going to enforce anything, or if they try to enforce something, the school's just going to sue them.
Yeah. I mean, is anybody actually spending $22.5 million on the dot?
No.
So then what matter again? What?
Also, bro, raise your seat, dude. He pissed me off because he's not listening, bro. He's mailing it in this show. Don't mail it in. If you don't have anything insightful to say, just be funny.
Why does it matter what bucket it comes out of?
I don't think it does, and I don't think Miami thinks it does. I think that's why if you ask me right now, no, but I will say we misjudged the Devon Williams situation, which I'm not going to do this time, because we said, well, why would Washington want him back? He can't go back. Well, yeah, he's the best possible quarterback, so he went back.
Yeah,
and they took him back. So I'm not going to say that this time. I'm not going to say, because you saw there were Duke players tweeting shade at Darian Mensah over the weekend, understandably so.
Washington players also tweeted shade at Damon Williams. This is just like when a player requests a trade in the NFL and the team's like, nah. And look, you got to be a grown man. You're making millions of dollars. Go back in the locker room and go do it. Like, people acting like this is some like crazy foreign concept, like sound fucking stupid. So like you've never covered a fucking any other sport in your entire life.
And I can't imagine the Washington players were happy with Williams. You know, that's you're gonna have to deal with that. Yeah, if you want.
We've learned that, so I'm not going to assume anything like that. I assume they will take him back if that's what it comes to. But I am leaning in this case toward he winds up finding a way to Miami with some financial restitution being paid to Duke.
Yeah.
Because that's how a lot of these things get solved.
Yeah. I do think one thing they're missing is that, like, while Duke might want some money back, the bigger payday for Duke is the precedent that the ACC set. The ACC letting Miami keep all of their playoff earnings is the ultimate incentivizer for everyone in that conference to make the playoffs. Because, look, if Duke makes the postseason, they will get the Darian Mensah money and then some. Like, they are looking for more money than just that. So the damage that can't be calculated is because, look, if we make the playoffs and fucking win 1 game, win 2 games, get a bye for whatever reason, because we were ACC champs a year ago, we just lost 5 games and didn't need to. Like, if you are better next year, which you should be, with the best quarterback in the conference, that little $4 million that you get back from Miami is not worth the potential $20 million you can make from the fucking playoffs. Like, that's what nobody is getting. And it's like the most like absurd thing. Like, use your brain. Like, Why don't they want him to go anywhere? Because the ACC has set the precedent. If you make the playoffs, we will give you your entire playoff check. That is far more than a little $4 million you pay him. But to get that playoff check, you need him. Like, that's what everybody's missing entirely.
Yeah. I mean, that to me, like, that's what it's about, right? So
it is. And it's interesting because this is something I probably need to do some research on in the offseason. I need to talk to some of these agents that represent the players because I'm curious. I'd like to ask them, why don't you just put a number in there to break the deal like the coaches' agents do?
I'm sure they probably will now.
Right. I think the answer is going to be, well, I thought I could get them out for free if I didn't.
Yeah.
But if the schools and the conferences are getting better at writing these deals, like, and honestly, a lot of players in the portal wouldn't command or wouldn't have the leverage to be able to say, I want you to put in a clause that allows me to break the deal for X dollars. But a big quarterback like Darian Mensah absolutely would. He would have multiple suitors, and basically the agent would say, listen, we're not signing any deal that does not include.
I mean, the truth is for the premium players, the premium players are always the ones with the leverage. The schools are the desperate
Correct.
ones. Always.
Yeah.
And I know that there was like this picture painted that the portal had 10,000 people and it only 8,000 people, found.
But it's like, who made Mensah the premium player?
Found a new home. And I understand that, like, it's not always the best, route for a lot of players that enter the portal. A lot of people get bad advice. A lot of people find themselves in worse off situations. And I get that. But for the premium players, which are the ones that you're going to see lawsuits over, the school is always more desperate to have them than they are desperate to be there. Right. And whatever it takes to be written to those contracts in order to get that player for 1 year will be done. Now, I think that the bigger issue here, Andy, more than anything, is are we going to get to a point in college football where signing a deal or anticipating having the same player for more than 1 year is just not a good business plan anymore? It's like when you sign Damon Williams or you sign Darian Mensah to multi-year deals or have to renegotiate those deals year over year, you have to take it 1 year at a time.
The Damon Williams deal was 1 year at a time. The Mensah deal was for 2 years because that's how they got him, because they were aware, because they trusted their process.
Especially if that player performs. Like, it's hard to expect that player won't want to leave.
Or you can both negotiate. All it has to do is, because that's what everybody's like, well, you got to go to collective bargaining. And I still think they could solve a lot of their problems with rules with collective bargaining. And we'll talk about that when we talk about Charles Bediako and eligibility next. But I also think there's a way to do this without anything changing, without any congressional law, without any.
Yeah, honor your fucking contracts that you sign and have agents that are actual agents and don't want kids to break their contracts like this. Holy shit. Like, literally, like, he announced a couple weeks ago that he wanted to stay.
CBA, the contracts can just evolve. And you can evolve the player contracts to look like the coach contracts, where you can have a buyout that says, if we want to cut the player after a year, we owe him this much. And if the player wants to leave after a year, he owes us this much. Why wouldn't there's no reason you can't do that.
Well, I'm assuming it will evolve that way. But you know what I think is so fascinating about this specific instance, Andy? Darian Mensah was amongst the highest compensated player in the entire country last year.
Mm-hmm.
His team won the conference championship game.
Yes.
And he still wants to leave.
To go to the team that is in the same conference that played for the national title.
Right. But it doesn't matter how much you pay a player or how successful that player is at a place like Duke.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to retain talent if you're Alabama.
It's easier to retain talent if you write a better contract. Write a contract they can't wiggle out of.
Yeah. Well, and year over year too.
Yeah.
If you are offering the most money, that should be good. But when you have a good player, there's always going to be a team. Like, there is no question that Miami is just as desperate, if not more desperate, to land Darian Mensah than Duke is to retain him.
I would argue they're more desperate. Yeah, I think you're right.
Having tasted what they just got done tasting.
Right. And Emory Williams just topped in the portal. That was the quarterback who backed up Cam Ward and Carson Beck and was waiting his turn and thought, oh, this is going to be my chance. And then it becomes very clear over the last few weeks that they were going to go get a transfer portal quarterback. So obviously when the portal opened for the Miami players, he was hopping in.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. But I hope that at least these lawsuits are helping people write better contracts so that it's not some circus every offseason.
Well, it's both sides. Like, the school needs to do them differently, and the player agents need to do them differently. Like, the player agents don't need to go into this thing thinking, well, we'll just sneak them out the back door and then we'll deal with whatever legal issues later, because that's going to get somebody snared if you're not careful.
Andy,
just put a number in there.
My contract on 3 is nowhere near $4.5 million. Not even in the same ballpark world.
Right.
And I had a lawyer and people looking over the terms.
And this is where people are probably going, but that's an employment agreement. You're an employee. It doesn't matter, guys.
But I'm just saying,
We're
like, did
not-
it not occur to anybody on Duke's side of things that when you're paying somebody $4.5 million that you should write a contract that can't be challenged in terms of leaving? Like, did this
Dog, that's literally what they're arguing. Dude, he's offering absolutely nothing to this pot. Holy shit.
I mean, they thought they had.
Yeah, so Duke wrote a contract that they were like, yeah, he can get out of this easily. What the fuck? It's Duke law. Like, that fries me.
Yeah.
But they didn't specifically say enrolling in another school would breach the contract, which is what the Big Ten did because the Big Ten learned it the hard way.
I think they did. Is the big thing, which is wild that he's so off on this. I mean, the TRO is essentially saying Mensah can't enroll at another school, play football for another school, or license NIL in another school. Like the belief is that it was tied to the enrollment. Is this? I'm getting trolled.
When Xavier Lucas left Wisconsin, and Wisconsin wouldn't put him in the transfer portal, and he's like, okay, don't care, withdrawing and enrolling in Miami. And they had no recourse. Like, you'll notice, like, Wisconsin sued Miami. Nobody ever took legal action against Xavier Lucas himself.
Yeah.
If Damon Williams had left Washington, the legal action would have been against Damon Williams. So they learned.
Yeah, and like Duke is taking legal action against Mensah. What is happening?
Learned their lesson. So that's what those are the lessons you should take. And the player agents take this lesson. They're getting better on the school side at writing contracts. You're probably not going to be able to sneak your guy out the back door. So if you have someone who is being...
He was checked out. What a horrible pod from him. Andy did a good job, but Ari was checked the fuck out. That was fucking garbage. No, I'm curious to see how this thing unfolds. I just wanted to put kind of a ground floor video in, and then I'll be covering it kind of as it goes. I'm excited for an update video as we get closer to February 2nd. As always, like, sub, on the road to 9,000 subs. And I'll talk to you guys when I talk to you guys.